Good evening and welcome to the overnight edition of From Day 1, the April 1st. Now, of course, in the overnight, heading towards April 2nd edition. Art Bell, as you can hear, is warming up in the background with his opening theme playing in the back tonight. From July 23rd, 2015, Nassim Haramain, his guest. So, here's Art.
From the high desert and the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the case is, wherever you are, and it truly is worldwide. We're covering the world. It's really great to be here, folks. It really is. We've got Nassim Haramain on tonight. He is a physicist, has been compared to Tesla, actually. Not a doctorate, but he sure knows what he's talking about. What a world. He'll be coming to us from a hotel in Paris, France. So a couple things I want to get out of the way, and then we'll get on with that. It's going to be fascinating. Sorry to report. We've got, breaking news, of course. Not good stuff, never is, right? Lafayette, Louisiana. May have heard about it. Some mentally deranged person, I'm sure it's got to be that, went into a movie theater in Lafayette and began shooting. Shot a total of 11. That would include himself. He's dead. He committed suicide. So 9 are shot, from what I can get, and 2 are dead. And my only comment on these head shakers is this country's not doing enough for mental health. Ronald Reagan, who I really admired, did something I did not admire, and that was release so many from institutions. It's not guns, can't blame them. It's mentally ill people. I mean, think about it for just 1 second, because I certainly have, and that is, if you wanted to go out, take yourself out, let's say, and you had even the slightest inkling that there was a hereafter, would you murder a bunch of people randomly and then shoot yourself? No. And I think most of us have an inkling that there is a hereafter, don't we? Sure we do. I do anyway. So a couple of other items, leaving that one quickly. A renowned theoretical physicist and cosmologist, Stephen Hawking, has launched now the most extensive search for intelligent alien life on other planets. This is big news. In an infinite universe, he said, there must be other occurrences of life. He launched today the $100 million 10-year project at the Royal Society Science Academy in London. Now, they're going to be listening really, really hard. It's funded by a Russian tech entrepreneur, Yuri Milner. They're going to be using satellite dishes, big satellite dishes in West Virginia, I believe. And where else? United States Parkes Telescope in New South Wales, Australia. So there you go. And the other news on that front is we have a sister planet, Earth 2.0, they now call it. This is dubbed Kepler 452b. It's in a 385-day orbit around its sun, and it's probably Earth 2.0. It is, of course, it's been created 6 billion years ago, so if it's got the stuff of life, water, air, whatever, it's just like Earth, but it's 1,400 light years from Earth. Translated, that means if you could fly at the speed of light, it would take you 1,400 years to get there. 1,400. So even if they were madly sending signals, they would have had to have been sending them for some time. Well, there may be life there. There really may be. All right. Now, the big one. Last night, at the beginning of the program, I said I would like to connect with Anonymous, the hacker group, the group Anonymous. They're not really a group. So between the time I said that last night and now, I have learned more than most people want to know about Anonymous. However, I'm going to read you an email that I received, and I'm pretty darn sure I'm in contact. I had a number of emails today that said, well, Art, you wanted to hear from Anonymous. You better check your Twitter. Good luck. So I got this email today, and I want to read it to you, and it was I'll give you my impression after I read it. Art, you had speculated that Anonymous was probably involved in the New York Stock Exchange outage last week. I do not believe this to be the case for the following reasons. Even though the warning was posted by an establishment media outlet of the anonymous hive mind, that would be at Your Anon News on Twitter, among others, it was not done in the typical style of Anonymous warning a target. In other words, there was no media blitz, no computer-generated featurette on YouTube to warn the target and recruit Anons. No press release on any of the anonymous text posting services like Pastebin, and no dissemination of links to pages containing relevant reconnaissance information and operational security tips to Anons who are not plugged into the usual communication channels but who still may wish to take part. From the information available at this time from news outlets, the New York Stock Exchange, and anonymous related sources, I do not believe the anonymous warning to have been a threat. Instead, it is my considered belief from analysis of the information that Anons who work for the New York Stock Exchange in some capacity began to see things happening that they believed were potentially damaging. Buggy software updates, hardware problems that were not going to be solved before the start of business the next day, or something else along those lines, and attempted to warn people through those anonymous media outlets. It's typical that anonymous social media and propaganda outlets are operated by multiple individuals simultaneously. So, if this is in fact the case, it would not be surprising that there are members of the anonymous hive mind that work for the New York Stock Exchange. Anonymous is one of the most socially and economically diverse groups out there. Group is not the proper term. Adherent of the anonymous meme is more correct. There are Anons who are precocious youngsters in middle school, parents, active duty soldiers, police officers, programmers. To blame Anonymous for a specific attack is to mistake membership in or adherence to a meme with the existence of an actual attack. To put it another way, and I believe you will understand as you are in possession of no small degree of technical skill due to your background, Douglas Adams once famously said, "We're stuck with technology when what we really want is just stuff that works." So after reading this, I said to myself, okay, this is the one. I mean, clearly he knows what he's saying. So I can't promise this, but it is possible that tomorrow night we may get a means of communication from the person who wrote what I just read to you. Nassim Haramain was born. So I've connected with Anonymous, obviously, and we'll see where it goes from here. My wife, who is Filipina, as you know, is obviously connected enough to ask me, "You did what?" I told him I wanted to talk to somebody from Anonymous. Yeah. Anyway, Nassim Haramain was born in Geneva, Switzerland in 1962. As early as 9 years old, he was already discovering the universal dynamics of matter and energy, which led him on a journey toward pioneering a new approach to quantum gravity and continual developments in unified field theory. He grew up in eastern Canada, with an innate reverence for the design or nature and a determination to discover the basic building blocks of creation. Nassim dedicated most of his time to independent investigation into physics, geometry, chemistry, biology, consciousness, that's a big one, archaeology, various world religions. His dedication to scientific exploration combined with his keen observation of the behavior of nature led him to a specific a geometric pattern, which is at the core of his approach and the new perspective in unified field theory. He's got a couple of young sons that he raises in Hawaii. However, at the moment, believe it or not, what a world, he's in a hotel room in Paris, France, which is where we're going to be going shortly. He's quite an amazing individual, in my opinion, just an absolutely amazing individual. So we're going to have fun. We're going to talk to him. We're going to ask him about, I think, the things we all want to know about. So that's coming up. This is Midnight in the Desert. Stay right where you are. Paris, France. Can you believe that? What a world. And wait till you hear how he sounds. It's all coming up next. No call screening, no waiting on hold, no requirement to kiss Art's ring, just good talk. Join Art by calling 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952. Call Art. All right. I just have one more comment on Anon, folks. Thank you for all the contact. Don't hurt me. It's going to be a good interview. I'm just interested in the philosophy. I've heard a number of recordings from that group, so don't get me. All right, let's see if we can go all the way to Paris, France, and say hello. Nassim, you're on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hi. It's great to have you. Really in Paris, huh?
Yeah, I am. I've been traveling a lot and, down here having a few meetings.
I am so jealous. I've been there a number of times, Nassim, and it is such a gorgeous place. God.
Absolutely.
I wonder something. Tell me something, Nassim. How can something so old as Paris look so doggone good? I mean, everything is stone. Everything is clean. It's staggering.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
And when you look at Paris layout, the way the streets are laid out and the geometry of the whole thing, it's an amazing thing, actually.
It is.
It's remarkable. There's no, 90 angled corners or very little. It's all round.
That's right.
And it's an amazing setup. It's a little bit hard to navigate, but you get used to it.
Yeah, that's okay. I just went down by the Seine, sat down with some nice French bread and some wine, and anyway.
Good food, for sure.
Yeah, down to business here. You're a physicist. Now, you don't have a doctorate. Many have compared you favorably with, for example, Tesla. You've studied physics for 30 years. And so I guess the first and most obvious question is, what in the world led you into the field?
Well, I think it was a natural curiosity right from the beginning when I was young, trying to, like most people are born and then they're just having this experience we call life, and they don't really think twice about it. But for me, it was like, how is this happening? How is it that I'm alive? And what is all this stuff around me? And how did it get there? And how did I get here?
Yeah.
And all that were really kind of fundamental questions that I thought had to be addressed. And so I kind of launched myself on a journey to try to figure some of this stuff out.
Have you figured some of this stuff out?
I think so. Although as you get older and wiser, you start to feel that you haven't maybe figured it out as much as you thought you did. But
that's right.
Yeah.
All right. So where do we launch here? I'm going to ask that you keep this discussion sort of at a human level. When we get into physics, it's rough going, and understanding things requires somebody who can explain it in normal human words.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll try to keep it as layman as I can.
Okay. I can see from some of what you've written that may not be easy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am very, very, very interested in consciousness. And I wonder, I guess you feel that everything is connected. Yes?
Absolutely. It's not just a feeling, it's a function of how things are. You can't really isolate anything from anything else. Gravitational field, electromagnetic field, and so on cannot be completely shielded. And so everything is kind of interacting with everything. And we have lots of evidence in quantum field theory and quantum quantum mechanics that's the case, that things are interacting at a level that's not necessarily obvious.
Oh, very much not obvious. Whenever I have a physicist on, I try to have him explain to me the concept or the apparent reality of quantum entanglement. Now, I want to give you a shot at it. It's where one particle. Let me try. It's when one particle's next to another particle and they get into some kind of sync or they recognize each other. It's like shaking hands. Then you can take particle B, to Paris, for example, from where I am here in the desert, and both of these particles are flipping and flopping in exactly the same way, as if they are, in communication.
Yes, they're instantaneously connected, no matter how far they are from each other. One could be on the other side of the universe. And if you polarize this one a certain polarity angle over here, the other one will change its polarity angle instantaneously. It's remarkable.
Right. Instantaneously is the word. In other words, perhaps even exceeding, if we're talking about communication, and we'll get to that, if we were, it would be at the speed of light or better, right?
Yeah, way faster.
Way
because
faster.
It's instantaneous no matter how far it is.
That's exciting.
And so we've been able to test this because we can get particles on Earth far enough apart that even at the speed of light, we could see a delay in the reaction of the entangled particle, and we're unable to measure any delay. It's instantaneous.
That's impossible.
Well, it's impossible if we think of things being separate from each other, but it's possible if we think of things being part of one fundamental network that everything interacts with.
But it, in the way you just described it, for example, you said if you were to get one of the particles at one particular angle, the other would. It's impossible, Nassim. It's impossible. And if it is possible, how? And if you don't know, which I don't think you do, don't be afraid to say you don't know. I can't fathom it. I've thought about this again and again and again, and it just won't come to me.
Right. Actually, it's a really, really good question that hasn't been answered very clearly at all from the mainstream, except for the last few years, where finally something that I mentioned many moons ago, there is very famous physicists that are writing papers showing that most likely even subatomic particles are connected through what is called wormholes, which were never usually applied to entanglement, because wormholes are a consequence of Einstein's equations, which usually deals with the big stuff, with the cosmological stuff, not the small stuff of quantum theory. So, but now it's becoming more and more obvious, and it's becoming realized that particles may be connected by teeny-weeny wormholes, and that these wormholes is what is transferring the information, instantaneously across scales.
That's fascinating. All right. Well, normally my idea of a wormhole was a sun that collapses, right, and creates this monster of a wormhole.
Yeah, this monster of a black hole that may generate wormholes.
Yes, a black hole, and then you could have wormholes.
That's right. And so it's starting to become obvious, and really we're starting diving deep. This is probably some of the most bleeding edge of physics right now. It's becoming clear that black holes seem to be connected through wormholes,
right,
and that black holes are not just cosmological objects like the sizes of stars or the center of galaxies or things like that, but actually particles, subatomic particles that are really, really teeny,
right,
maybe as well acting as black holes and be connected through wormholes.
Through what method? In other words, when we get a black hole, we know a sun collapses, but at the atomic level, what can possibly occur to create such a... Well, they're powerful in what they allow, right?
Yeah, such an energetic event, as a black hole.
Right.
That's a really, really good question, Art. And, to understand that, we have to bring in something that's called the quantum vacuum fluctuations, or the zero-point energy, as it's more popularly known. And it has to do that when you look at the very, very fine level, when you look at like the basis of space-time at the, way below the atomic structure, way below the nuclei of an atom, like at the very, very fine level, what we find is that it's not empty, that space is not empty at that scale. It's actually full of energy, and that energy may be the source of what's fueling these mini black holes that we end up experiencing as subatomic particles.
Well, I've heard it speculated that there are very small, relatively small black holes that one could even, for example, pass through the Earth, and we might not even know it. Is that possible?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, there's been a certain amount of search for some of these very small black holes, even inside our solar system. You know, this might sound shocking, but as a result of the mathematics that I wrote, which predicted very, very accurately, actually more accurately than any other theory on Earth today, the mass and radius of a proton, which is the nuclei of an atom or matter.
Right.
You know, I've been able to say or to show very, very clearly that actually what we think of the nuclei of an atom acts very much like the nuclei of a galaxy, which is, you know, a black hole structure.
That so, kind of makes sense, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of like as above, so below.
So below, yes.
Kind of thing. And because everything is inside everything, meaning that all matter is inside our universe, and, you know, if everything is entangled, the mass of the universe would be shared across all atoms. And actually, that interaction, you could say that the information moving from one point to another in the universe is actually what we experience as our reality, or the material world we see. You know, it's a little bit hard concept to visualize, but you have to realize that when we're talking about the nuclei of an atom, like a proton, or even an atom itself, all we're talking about is that in that region of space, we can see there's a dense electromagnetic field, electrostatic field that seems to have a boundary, but we're not seeing like billiard balls. You know, that's the thing we got to get out of our head.
Right. I want to sort of apply this or walk back to consciousness and how that might or might not fit in a little bit with what we're talking about. They're doing this fascinating experiment. I'm sure you've heard of it at Princeton University, the egg thing, where they're watching mass consciousness and all the rest of that, and the idea that we are all connected. So we'll touch on that when we get back. Stay right where you are. Nassim Haramain is my guest from Paris, France. I'm Art Bell, and this is Midnight in the Desert.
For Dark Matter News, I'm Leo Ashcraft. It's a pursuit nearly as old as the infamous shipwreck itself. Divers have plunged into the waters off of Nantucket, Massachusetts, to catch a glimpse of the Andrea Doria a day after the ship sank in July 1956. The first dive netted photos for Life magazine. Later, an expedition led to a documentary about the deadly shipwreck, which killed more than 50 people when the Italian luxury liner collided with another ship. For decades, the site became so popular with daring divers that it is known as the Mount Everest of wreck diving. Officials have long warned that it's dangerous to dive to get to the shipwreck site, 240 feet underwater. In the past decades alone, the Coast Guard says 7 people set out to reach the wreck and never returned. Another diver went missing this week and is presumed dead. The Coast Guard said it suspended the search for the missing 64-year-old man Wednesday night and notified his next of kin. The extremely controversial Jade Helm 15 military exercise, which is scheduled to run from July 15th to September 15th in at least 7 states, including hostile Texas, will be entirely off limits to reporters, according to a military spokesman. The Jade Helm exercise, which was originally set to consist of more than 1,200 special operations personnel, has been talked about amongst conspiracy theorists and members of the general public for months now. Due to this public outcry, a U.S. Army lieutenant colonel has announced that the operation will be slimmed down to a mere 200 special op forces and 300 support personnel. An additional 700 personnel will be deployed to Texas in August for 5 days, as reported by the Washington Post. During the exercise, military personnel dressed like civilians will move amongst the populace undetected, according to the documentation already presented. This is Dark Matter News. Those bright spots on Ceres just won't go away, will they? While New Horizons and the dwarf planet Pluto might have been hogging the limelight recently, the Dawn spacecraft deserves its fair share of attention too, and it may be close to solving the mystery of the bright spots on fellow dwarf planet Ceres. Ever since Dawn entered orbit around Ceres earlier this year, scientists have been left baffled by the appearance of bright spots seemingly redirecting sunlight in craters on the surface. Theories of their origin have ranged from ice, exposed by impacts on the surface, to salt flats or even cryovolcanoes. Now, scientists might be closer to solving the mystery by spotting a haze above the group of spots, suggesting their origin is ice. The latest findings were revealed by Christopher Russell, the principal investigator on the mission, at an exploration meeting at NASA's Ames Research Center earlier this week. If confirmed, this could be the first such haze ever found in the asteroid belt and could indicate the presence of ice turning into gas, known as sublimation, on Ceres. The haze was found confined to the Okator crater, which contains the most famous spots on the surface labeled Spot 5. More than a quarter of Ceres' mass is thought to be composed of water, the other three-quarters rock, much more than is thought to be present on asteroids. Whether these spots are made up of water ice, though, or something else entirely, has been up for debate. Now, this discovery of haze lends strong evidence to the ice theory. Dawn is continuing to spiral closer and closer to Ceres as it lowers its orbit, and by August it will be 1,500 kilometers above the surface, compared to less than 4,000 kilometers now. It will also use its infrared spectrometer, which should be able to work out if the spots are made of ice or salt. By August, then, we can expect to have much better understanding of the bright spots. Whatever they turn out to be, the answer is sure to provide a fascinating insight into some of the processes taking place on Ceres. I'm Leo Ashcraft for Dark Matter News.
I just love it. So you heard more of it than usual. If everything is connected, well, then somehow that song makes sense to me. Nassim Haramain is my guest, and he founded the Hawaii Institute for Unified Physics. He does not have a doctorate. However, he's an incredibly bright guy. You can go look him up. Nassim, have you published, by the way?
Yeah, I've published multiple papers in physics. Some of them are very controversial, describing the nuclei of an atom as a mini black hole. But the latest one, making a prediction of actually exactly the radius and the mass of that mini black hole we call the nuclei of an atom, or the proton.
Yes.
And as well predicting how that black hole would behave in terms of its strength and gravity, attracting other little protons, and proving that that force is exactly what's holding the nuclei together, not the typical strong force described in quantum mechanics.
What has to be done to prove your prediction?
When I published that, what needed to be done is an accurate measurement of the radius of the proton, which I thought, oh my God, I might not be around by the time that's done, and I might never see that happen. And then, unbeknown to me, an experiment was actually being carried out in Switzerland in an accelerator to measure more precisely the radius of the proton than ever. And it was published about 2 months after I published my paper. And the prediction startled the measurement startled the scientific community, because it was too small to support the standard model of physics. But it was exact to my model.
Wow. I would assume you're talking about CERN, the super collider?
No, it's a proton accelerator, the Gerard accelerator in Switzerland, that is specialized in measuring such things. And it was really amazing that it happened so quickly and that my prediction got confirmed so fast. And to this day, it's the most precise theoretical model to predict what's actually happening down there in terms of the energy and the geometry of a proton, which is really important because it's like basically the mass of the atom, the mass of reality, how reality comes about. And what it says is really incredible, because it actually says that all the protons are acting upon each other, and that the system is one big holographic system. And the way their equations are written, it shows that like all the information of all the other protons in the universe are present in one single proton. And in terms of vacuum fluctuation, in terms of information inside the volume of one proton, a little bit like a CD-ROM might have an orchestra on it. Of course, the violinist and the violin and the cello and all this is not literally on the CD-ROM, but the information is there, the music is there. It's like all the information of everything else in the universe is present in one single particle, and its interaction together is what, like the information moving through the thing. This is how I made the equation. Actually predicts the correct mass and radius of that proton. So it's really saying the universe itself.
Okay, we've got you out. There was a brief little interruption there. Let me ask this. You made the prediction, which is really sticking your neck out, and it was all done with mathematics, you said, right?
Right.
Okay. Were you given a few accolades from other physicists? You would classify yourself as a theoretical physicist, I presume, yes?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I received some accolades from some, and a lot of tomatoes throwing from others.
Really?
Yes.
The ones throwing the tomatoes, what were they saying?
They tried to dismiss the mathematics and the equation, and
wait. Was that before or after it was measured and it was verified?
Before and after.
And after. Now, see, that's not science.
I know, it's remarkable. Even some of the people that made the measurement came at me, but the math is bulletproof. The math is solid, and it's very simple, actually. It's a simple volume to surface ratio of these little Planck information bits in the vacuum. And it really outputs, and you know what's incredible, Art, is that these equations, basically they're describing the information that's in the field of energy we call the vacuum structure at the quantum level. And when you're doing the equation, you're actually using huge numbers. Because these bits of information are so teeny, there's a lot of them inside a proton. So you're using numbers that are equivalent to the mass of the universe and all this stuff. And when you're done with the equation, it outputs an exact value for the proton, which is a teeny little thing. So it's really unlikely that it's arbitrary.
All right. For those who don't know about it and want to do some heavy reading, your latest paper is called Quantum Gravity and the Holographic Mass. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Is it published? Is it on the internet? Can they find it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You can find it on our site, or you can find it on the scientific journal site where it was published. It was peer-reviewed there in an open peer review, so you can even read the peer review comments.
Way to go.
And it is, it is unconventional, of course.
Yes.
However, a lot of evidence is emerging that supports this view. And, the math is the math is the math. And when it does good prediction, I'll give you another idea, is that, in some 2 decades or more of string theory trying to be pushed forward to unify physics,
yes,
not one single prediction was made that could be verified in a laboratory. Not one single prediction. Yet, this theory, within months of being published, produced a very, very important prediction. And so it's very compelling. And it's really simple. That's the crazy part about it. And that's some of the criticism I get, is that it seemed too simple.
Some of what Einstein produced turned out to be pretty simple and short too, right?
Exactly. And it's commonly known that typically when a simple and beautiful solution is found, it's the correct one.
I'm told that the final solution someday, and that which people in your in your line of work pursue, is this theory of everything that some say may turn out to be no longer than your thumb.
Right, exactly. That when we find a unified view of not only physics but literally everything,
yes,
it would be beautiful and simple, and it would make sense, right? And certainly string theory is not that. It's very complex, and it predicts things that are not really useful. For instance, you could.
I interview frequently the man who was, I guess, co-author of the string theory. I guess Michio Kaku, professor.
Yes, absolutely.
And I frequently interview him, and so let's talk string theory a little bit. You say it predicts things that don't make sense, or?
Well, the result of string theory is unclear, meaning there's 10 to the 400 and some or 86 different ways of compactifying the strings. There's not, it doesn't give you clear answer. It's extremely complex. It's written in 10 or 11 dimensions. And it doesn't really give us a clear picture of how this universe is producing all this material world that we live in, and certainly it says nothing about how consciousness emerged from it. And so, a lot of theorists in the last few years have been turning away from string theory because it seems like it's lacking elegance.
I've heard that some are turning away from it. What about the multiverse theory that seems to go with the string theory? Do you think the whole concept of multiverse existence collapses without string theory being so, or is there some way in which you can see multiple dimensions?
Yeah, I think that the multiverse can remain, but it becomes much less esoteric in terms of the way it's functioning. It's more mechanical. It makes more sense. That is that our universe is most likely not isolated, is probably part of a larger universe, which is part of a larger universe, which is part of a larger universe again, and so on. So it's more like fractal universes instead of parallel ones.
I can embrace that idea as well. I can see that. It goes from the very largest to the very smallest.
Very smallest.
Yes,
that's right. And when you look at the bubble we call our universe today, and we have some idea of its radius, and you put the mass that we observe in our universe in it, our universe obeys the exact quantity or the exact density of a black hole.
In other words, all the rules are followed.
That's right. And so if our universe is a black hole, most likely the material stuff we see in it are mini black holes as well, and so on. And so basically it's kind of scales of black holes from infinitely big to infinitely small.
All right. I'm going to venture all over the place, and I'm just going to ask you about this. And you're from Switzerland. The CERN devices, Super Collider, the big mama, they're really cranking it up. I think they're taking the voltage way, way up. And I've asked a number of people about this and would like to ask you, is there any possibility, in your opinion, of danger with what they're doing?
That's a complex question. I think in general, no. I think in general, what they're doing is, it's colliding proton at very, 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 very high velocity with each other. Now, if my theory, and, I was invited to present, when I made this prediction, I was then shortly thereafter invited to present my paper at CERN, which was canceled promptly by the director. My predict, if we take my theory and then we apply it to what's going on at CERN, it's probably not the best idea to collide little protons together.
No.
If they're all connected, we're probably sending shockwaves.
No, wait a minute. See, I just said, is there any possible danger in what they're doing? And now you seem to be, after saying no, describing possible danger.
Well, it's probably creating some noise on the structure of space-time that may not be the best thing to do. Is it endangering our health directly and so on? I think the effect is so minimal that we don't necessarily experience it. But I would say that even
Laurie, let me ask you this. Is your only concern for the poor little colliding particles, or is there a possibility that something else might occur in the continuum that all of us might not like?
I think it could be, absolutely, but I don't think we're any close to the energy levels I would require to do something very, very dramatic. I think those energy levels are way above what the standard model predicts, just because of the way the equations I wrote are set up.
Okay, I'm not a physicist, but, little things can make big bangs. And
Mm-hmm.
We know that. And so if we collide the wrong thing with the wrong thing at the wrong speed, you couldn't exactly say there's 100% no problem, because we're off into territory that we don't understand fully, right?
Exactly. And certainly, even in the standard model, there's an outside possibility of creating, an entity that wouldn't be a healthy thing to have around.
Wait. Entity?
Well, I meant it in terms of a particle, a black hole.
On this program, you have to be careful about saying entity.
I'm sorry. But it will, like I said, the energy levels are not there. I would be more concerned. I am actually more concerned about the electromagnets in the device being so strong, and their influence on the electromagnetic field of the Earth and the ionosphere and so on. Because
I have never heard anybody say that. They are obviously very, very, very strong magnets, right?
Exactly. And it creates a very high electromagnetic
force
in that region, which, the Earth's magnetic field, is influenced by. And actually, I am more concerned about that than what they're producing inside the accelerator.
I recently heard that our magnetic field, Nassim, is weakening significantly. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been spotting, which is typical of what we've observed from records in the lava of the beginning of a magnetic pole shift. And so there is a weakening of the magnetic field, and there's spotting that's occurring. And spotting is like when if you're in the north hemisphere, all of a sudden there's little spots of south polarity, showing up and so on. And so and the poles are drifting significantly as well. And all of those things are indication of magnetic pole shift.
How about the word precursor? Precursors to a pole shift.
Right.
See, now you are the second person, Nassim, to say that to me in 2 days. Hold it right there. Just stand by. We're going to take a break. Second person to say that in 2 days. Pole shift. Doesn't sound good, does it? Doesn't sound good to me anyway, at all. Pole shift. North and south, southwest, north. And who knows what the plates do. You're listening to Midnight in the Desert.
Midnight Matter can be explored on Midnight in the Desert with our Bell. If using Skype from your computer, please be sure to use a headset mic and call MITD 51. That's MITD 51.
There he went again, stumbling a little bit. All right, welcome back, everybody. There is so much to talk about. Nassim Haramain is here with us, and he's coming all the way. So if you hear an occasional crackle or whatever, he's in Paris at a hotel, and so I'm astounded that we hear him as well as we actually do. So once again, welcome back, and we left it at pole shift. I'm coming back to consciousness eventually, but pole shift. When you hear pole shift from two people in 2 days, and you start thinking about it drifting and doing all kinds of precursor things that people are talking about, I can't resist asking you, Nassim, about the possibility of a pole shift. If that were to occur, and frankly, we're overdue for it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We're overdue.
Yeah.
We know that it's flipped many, many times before.
Right.
From records in the lava where the particles align to the magnetic field of the Earth. So we know it's flipped a bunch of times, and we seem to be overdue for one. And the way the magnetic field is behaving right now seem to be suspiciously confirming that we're about to have one.
Well, let's say we have one. Let's say we have a pole flip. What do you believe we can expect? We humans can expect, the animals of the planet, the perhaps the mammals, the fish, the birds, and then of course, us.
They could be significant disruption, that as a result of a magnetic pole shift, many of our technologies would be disrupted. The way birds navigate, the way some of the marine mammals navigate and so on, could be very much disrupted, and it could have some significant impact on our civilization, just because our civilization is technically and technologically very much tied into the expecting the electromagnetic field and magnetic field of the Earth to be stable and to be polarized in a certain way.
We definitely depend on it, yes.
That's right. But I think overall we would survive the event quite well. You can think of it as our sun, for instance, which is some 99.8% the mass of our solar system. Every 11 years, our sun flips its poles. Some people may not be aware of that.
Well, it's true.
And we don't experience huge impact from that, either than the sun becomes very active and throws out sun flares, and if we were hit by one of those sun flares like directly, could be catastrophic for the Earth.
Well, here's the thing. Let me just interject. We do have the magnetic field, which is exactly what protects us from those sun flares, right? So if it gets really, really weak before it decides to do its flip thing, and there's a big sun flare, it'll cook us alive, literally.
Yeah, it could be a big problem. For instance, if it got really weak, even without a big sun flare, just from galactic cosmic rays and radiation from the sun and all this, it could be a big problem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Fortunately, perhaps fortunately, as I mentioned last night, because we talked about this last night, we're having a minimum. According to the scientists, we may enter a period where there'll be absolutely no sunspots at all, the Mortar minimum. And that could go on for a number of years, and one has to wonder if whoever's watching out for us, I hope there's somebody, has decided if we've got to have a flip, let's have low sun activity, right?
Yes. Well, that's, convenient. It certainly is. I think, Art, at the end of the day, what we're getting to is that eventually we have to learn to fly. I like to think of it that way. We have to learn.
We have to learn to fly?
Yeah, we have to learn exactly what is a gravitational field and how to modulate it so that we can actually live in space and not on the surface of a planet. Because surfaces of planets are very unstable. They can get disrupted by many different sources, like a meteorite large enough, a comet coming by too close, a sun flare, and so on. And, I think like planetary systems are like little incubators. They're good for a little while, but eventually you got to learn to fly just like a bird in a nest and get out of the nest before the next hurricane,
Fly, little bird, now, or you die.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one saying that. For instance, Stephen Hawking for years have been saying we have to learn, we have to figure out a way to colonize other planet or live in space. And all that cannot be done using fossil fuels and rockets. And so we have to learn how to use gravity.
How to really fly.
Yeah.
Again, I harken back. I harken back to Michio Kaku, Professor Kaku, and here's something he said. Maybe you agree on this one. He said that right now we are a Type 0 planet, or civilization, if you will, and that, in his opinion, though he's upped the chances a little bit, I asked him what are the chances of our surviving here on Earth if we don't find a way to get off the planet. And he thinks we really need to get off the planet just like you do. He said the odds of surviving if we don't get off the planet are really tiny. In other words, we'll end up with either ruining the planet, blowing ourselves up, or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I think we're living in grace, and I'm just amazed we're still here to talk about it, like considering all the stuff that could happen that could wipe us out. It doesn't actually take that big of a meteorite to lose usable atmosphere and so on. And so it really is remarkable we're still here, but I think we shouldn't push our luck.
Well, Nassim, I've noticed something. And that is, the scientists sort of try to reassure us by saying, well, they're looking for these things.
Yes.
However, you may have noticed that many, many times you see a newspaper article that says something, or a broadcast that says something like, yesterday, the Earth had a really close call.
And with that, we are going to have to leave it, especially due to some technical difficulties it seems we are having. So we'll dawn to the day and pick up Art Bell tomorrow night in the overnight. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Get us to the goal of 50,000 views, 1,000 subscribers. So Boxy over Nixters will send us those nice red boxes, and YouTube will pay attention and put us in the algorithm. CoinBase, Ibotta, and Gain.gg are all there. $10 free for the first two when you sign up. The first 100 credits free when you sign up for Gain.gg, and whether it be Coinbase Learn lessons to get free crypto, shopping through Ibotta to get paid for what you normally have to do anyway, or doing surveys, watching videos, or downloading apps to your iPhone or Android through Gain.gg, get rewarded for what you're going to do anyway. So until next time, like, share, and subscribe, be kind to one another, and make sure you strike out and release the Krakens as we march along here from day one. Have a great night, enjoy your good night's sleep, and we'll see you tomorrow on April 2nd as we march along here from day one. Have a great night.